Like, that's how much extra diffuse glow there is, and the range is how far that goes.
Okay, this whole episode is mixed tips. You now have 1 minute to get the photo. You have 1 minute to get the photo. So, new game.
New game, new photo mode, importantly.
That's not always the case, but when it is, it's good.
Well, this definitely is brand new photo mode from FromSoftware.
I am really happy because it's something that people have been asking for so long. From Software
It's a
photo
bad
mode.
name, that.
Yeah.
It is. They've kind of got a bit of a cult following in their games, don't they? And yeah, they're always want a photo mode. Everyone wants a photo mode in Elden Ring. But Armored Core.
We talked about it last week, that what are the chances of Elden Ring getting a photo mode now that Armored Core has one? I think it's very high. Very likely.
Said not likely last time.
Yes,
You've changed
I said not likely. I changed my mind completely. I was talking with other fans of the series and other FromSoftware fans.
Yeah.
And they convinced me. Because this game has an online mode that is an arena. Elden Ring has something similar called the Colosseum. So you could technically put the photo mode running, and while the photo mode is running, shut down the multiplayer. But if you want to go to the multiplayer, you just go to the Colosseum.
Yeah.
So technically, you could pull it off.
Yeah. You can add it into any single player elements, definitely.
Yeah.
Whether they will choose to, back engineer the game with it, I don't know.
Yeah.
I suppose I think it depends on how much response they get to this one. But I think it's the right game to start it with, because I think the concept of great big building size mechs in front of your camera is a very attractive one.
Yeah, for sure. It's the perfect subject matter to photograph. And it's at least that I saw, it's the first mech game to have a photo mode.
Yeah.
To my knowledge.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's cool that the style is more realistic. Like, they are not going to... The style is not like cell shaded or
not like an
anime style. It's more like you can take photos of cool weapon parts and cool stuff like that. I like that.
You can, to an extent. Depends where it is.
Okay. Right now, I'm talking about the idea of having a photo mode in Armored Core, not the photo mode that we got. Yes. That's a whole other story.
I agree. We'll see that in a minute. Before I go on to that, did you get the game at release?
Yes.
You got the launch edition?
Yeah.
I just want to give him a little, little bit of credit for, I think, the launch edition, which is there. So it comes with a nice little cardboard sleeve and an envelope
which
inside.
I didn't open.
You didn't open. Well, you opened the sleeve because you had to get the game out, but you didn't open the little envelope inside.
The envelope, yeah.
And yeah, there's a poster and 3 nice little art cards. So those little dark ones there are the art cards, and a few stickers. And it's quite nice. Just to say that's a day one edition rather than, it's not a limited edition or anything like that.
It is technically is the limited edition.
You know what I mean, but it's not called limited. It's not a higher price one. It's the standard
you
price.
You don't pay more for it. Yeah, and it comes with. Did you get the DLC, the extra mech?
That was pre-order, and I didn't pre-order it. I went in on the day and picked it up. So no, I didn't get that.
It's not that different from...
I didn't think it would be.
Like, it's cool, but it's not like super OP or something like that. It's a cool looking mech.
Unlock it anyway as you play, can you not?
I don't know, because it didn't show up in the store for me, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Have you been playing the game?
Yes. So initially, I really didn't like it.
Yeah, the first impression is It's hard to swallow.
Especially because I read some reviews beforehand, and they were like, "Oh, it's so intuitive and fluid control scheme."
What the heck? Woo!
And I put it on.
Who said that?
I was
Who
just
lied like that?
I mean, there's fast movement. I'll give it that. But did I feel in control of it? No. There's 3 different ways to boost, and none of those buttons turn the boost off again.
Yeah.
You've got to just pull back.
What I do is I use square now. If I'm like assault boosting, I use square, which gives me extra boost, but at the same time stops the assault. So you have to boost to stop the assault boost.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it? Yeah.
I
moved all of mine around as well, actually. I put the normal boost on L3, so it's more like sprint in other games. And I put the quick boost, which is like dodge, on circle again, because it's more familiar to me.
We were talking, and I told you that it's counterintuitive to have the dodge on the square.
Yeah.
I didn't change it. Yeah. I stuck to it because I have a thing about controls in video games, because for some reason I never change them. I stick to them, and after I get used to them, I'm always okay. This makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the R2, R1, R2, L1, L2 it's the position of the arms and your weapons.
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Once I figured that out, I'm like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
For the attacks, this makes sense. And then the circle being like the small like navigation boost.
Normal boost, yeah.
It's actually cool. So the only one that I don't really like is the square, and I'm like, but if I change square, will I change it to circle? And I actually like what circle does. Well, so I'm like,
I put
stuck to it.
So your circle, the normal boost, that's what's on my L3 now. Because I came from every space, which normal boost is L3. And I kept pressing that, and you do the great big assault. You're like, oh my god, just ploughing off out of control. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. This is horrible.
That's actually how I build my mics, to have my ACs is to have the assault boost be super quick, because
when
I
you want it, but not when
I always want it, because I'm using short range weapons, not swords, but like shotguns and big grenade launcher. So I always want to be close to them. So I'm always assault boosting, going right into them and like poof, poof, and blow everything up.
That is one thing I'm liking now, actually, because I think I was playing it the wrong way to start with when I wasn't comfortable with it. But you can definitely approach with totally different play styles. You can build a mech to suit that, like you've just said, with closer weapons, or you can use long range stuff and pick them off from afar. I think it's really good. You can fully map the controller, by the way, but there's no photo mode shortcut.
Oh, so okay.
So you can't add photo mode to anything, and annoyingly, you've got to press options and then the touchpad, even though the touchpad is not used in the game. So it could have just been on the touchpad.
I always think that the touchpad solution is very obvious to PlayStation, but not to the other consoles.
Yeah.
I can't think of a game that isn't. This will be the case of last week when I said I can't think of a game, and then you go like, oh, there are tons. I can't think of a game that uses the touchpad that isn't PlayStation Studios. Go ahead.
That uses it at all?
No, that uses it to the photo mode shortcut.
Photo mode. No, I can't think of anything offhand. But if you've got fully mappable controls, and they are using the touchpad in the menu, so they've used it.
Yeah.
That was my point. They are using it as the photo mode access. So why not make it the photo mode access without the pause menu?
I'm curious. Do we know anyone that photographs on Xbox and is playing AC? Because I'm curious. What's the photo mode shortcut?
It'll just be a different button. Whatever, you might go in and press X or B. Okay. I don't know. Good question. Same on PC, I guess, because it can be any number of controllers, can't it? You have to map it.
Let's be honest, people on PCs are using camera tools. They are not using the photo mode.
And there's good reason to do so in this, I think.
Yep.
So,
it's one of those games that I was like, I'm going to pick it on PS5 because it's easier to shoot on PS5. I could go. On stream yesterday, I had a full meltdown about Cyberpunk and how to shoot Cyberpunk on PC. It's super hard. It's one of the...
With tools, you mean?
Yeah, with tools. It's just not... No matter how good that portrait looks, no one can tell me it's worth the trouble. No one will convince me. You get nothing out of that photo mode with tools that is like... Yeah, it's okay. I will have all of this pain. It's a horrible experience. From start to finish, it was a horrible experience. But I will try it again.
This sounds like an episode idea at some point as to what sort of lengths you will go to get the shot. Try and remember that. Remind us in the comments. Tell us you need to do this episode because we always forget.
Someone was telling me that they have 500 mods for Cyberpunk installed on the PC just to take better pictures.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's the lens that. Yeah, I think you've got to be dedicated to one game to do it like that. Like for me, jumping between it wouldn't work. Anyway, shall we take a look
AC.
at the yeah.
By the way, wait. AC, Armored Core or Assassin's Creed?
I know. Well, it registers as Assassin's Creed for me to read it, but in Armored Core they call them ACs. So
yeah,
technically
I was streaming this game and I had that discussion with the chat because it's Assassin's Creed, but
Armored Core is older
now. Yeah, and now I'm like every time that I hear or see AC, it's Armored Core or air conditioner.
On that, yeah. Right, switch over. By the way, did you know you can enter the photo mode here in the garage?
Yeah, I did know.
You did?
Yeah.
So
I completely freaked out when I saw that.
There it is, touchpad.
Did you know that you can actually go to your weapons?
What do you mean?
So, where you are right now,
all right,
there is no weapons on screen.
No.
Go to your right.
Okay.
There are your weapons.
See, I didn't know that because I hadn't really explored this. Ah, that's interesting. And so is it just the ones that are equipped currently?
Yeah, it's just the ones that are equipped.
Something I want to say before anything else, by the way. Now, this is a problem that occurs quite often, but never as bad as this. I play with inverted y-axis controls because it makes complete sense that the stick is, like tilts down to look down, tilts forward to look down like your head does. So invert Y in the game inverts the y-axis normally. And so often photo modes don't follow it through. So you've got inverted in the game and not in the photo mode.
I never play inverted, so that's okay.
This goes the other way. Now I've inverted the game, that's fine. My right stick y-axis in the photo mode is the same. So I'm going to tilt it forward now and it looks down. It's like tilting your head. That's fine. It also inverts everything else.
Ooh.
So the left stick is inverted, so I've now got to push up to go backwards and backwards to go forwards. And the triggers are
That's a new one.
This is horrible. I've got to think about it. I tried to move forwards then.
Ooh, it's so hard for you to shoot, isn't it?
It is. It's just uncomfortable.
What about the sliders?
No, they're fine. That the D-pad works fine on those. Thank God.
Oh, I like your Mac.
No, this is just a default. Hold on, let me go back. That's not.
That's why I like it. But the colors, yours is grey and your weapons are blue and orange.
So that's because I did this load, and I really don't like the oh God.
The four legs
There
one.
it is. That's where it's got those colours from. Yeah.
Did you ever try to load the ones from the arena?
No, I didn't know you could load them.
You can.
Oh, so you can save that as a loadout.
When you defeat the mech in the arena, you can you unlock the preset.
Oh, okay. I didn't realise. Because I was going to use the arena just now. Go back to my bluish one.
Now, in that screen, go to the last tab.
Preset. Ah, nice. See this guy. I was like, oh, he looks a bit like Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
But a really bad one.
When I was fighting it, I thought it was like a reference or something, and then I saw it in here, and I'm like, nah.
Yeah, not so much.
Nah.
It's like scrap heap Optimus Prime.
From the bargain bin.
Yeah. Right, let's go and fight him anyway. So, it's this one. Right.
See in there?
Exactly. That's the stance that made me think it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I'll open it up. Sortie. Begin. Right. Now, the first trouble is trying to get close to it. So if I want to shoot pictures of him now, that's a good example.
Oh,
right?
that's...
It's got to get close enough to him. Just skip that. We don't need you. So as you'll see, that the range for something as well that's got such big subject matter, got massive mechs.
And in the garage, there is no limit. So
well, is
when
it
you
just
go
within the limit that you've got here? I think because you're quite close. Right, anyway, let me just get close to this guy. Where is he? Here. Come here. And that might do. Right. So forwards. Right, just using my mech for an example to start with. So this is the default field of view, and I will now move as far back as I can, and there you go, that's the limit. It's not terrible.
Do you know what's weird? I always feel like if you are on the back of your mech,
Yeah.
it gets closer.
As in you can't go as far back. That possibly. This happens in a few games. Death Stranding is one.
Okay.
Because it depends on where the camera starts relative to the character.
Okay, so it wasn't in my head.
Yeah.
That's good.
In Death Stranding, the camera range increases when you're in a vehicle because the camera pulls back from the vehicle.
Yes.
And then the photo mode moves from there.
Yeah. I used the vehicles to take some landscape shots.
Yeah, because you get a
wider view of.
Right. So anyway, camera range. So we've got total freedom of movement and full 360 pan and tilt, which is good. But
yeah.
I do think
the range is
should have been greater. I don't know where
and especially in this game, when you have two mechs and some enemies are really big, you fight heli carriers. So it would be cool to be able to, this is not a spoiler by the way, but in the first chapter, one of your missions is to bring down a huge thing.
Yeah.
A huge walking thing, and you can't get a shot of your mech and that thing unless you are on PC, basically.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like you said, it is the scale of the battlefield. The arenas are huge, you know. I mean, these arenas themselves are just a closed thing, but the actual levels are huge, and you cover distance really quickly. So I would have liked to get a lot more range.
The first time that I realized that the mechs are walking on top of roads and buildings.
Yeah, like actual normal city structure, which is tiny underneath you. Yeah.
It's super. That was cool. And you can't get rain enough back to show that you are on top of those huge buildings that seem
no,
really
you can't
tiny.
give the sense of perspective and scale on it at all. No.
Yeah.
Right, I'm just messing around a little bit here because I do want to, before I move past it, I want to just mention first of all, the naming is diabolical. So what is field of view, this one? It's called
Aperture angle.
Aperture angle. Come on, all right. Angle is okay because it's a field of view angle. It's not in degrees or anything. It's 1 to 100. It's just a nominal scale, I think. But that's basically field of view. Tilt, fine. That mistake gets made a lot. It's actually roll. It is. By the way, if you get to 180 and you want to just flip the other way, just press right again and it goes down to the other end.
Oh!
Yeah, it doesn't do it looping. It stops. But if you carry on, it restarts.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
because this photo mode, one thing that I don't like is that it's super sensitive.
Yes.
If you press it for like a second,
it skips 10, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, now we've got focal length, which is actually zoom. The focal length of a lens is effectively the zoom, the length of the lens. What they mean here is focus distance. So this is setting how far away from the camera you've got in focus. So bring it close.
In this case, it might be just a case of mistranslation.
I think it is. Yeah, I agree. But just don't be confused. It says focal length, it means focus distance. But you'll see as I increase it here, there you go. I can bring him into focus. I can bring it back out.
If you are on max distance, the max focal, like the max focus,
out of range. Yeah,
it's out of range, which is super.
I'm going to set it to 200, which is the maximum. So 200, don't know what, meters. Now let me just zoom in. There we go. So I'm just pulling the camera back. So basically dolly focus. I think I've already gone past it. There. So that's 200. You can see it's just on his sort of chest plate. Just get on his head there. Right. F number, by the way, works as you'd expect. So they're not real F numbers, but the smaller the value, the shallower the depth of field, and the higher then the greater the depth of field. It brings it back into focus. So I'll bring that down so you can see it. If I now zoom out, you'll see a bit more of the make. Right. This is not the furthest the camera can go. So that's the maximum focus distance, but I pull back and I can go all the way back here. But I cannot focus on the subject because
and I hate that.
I hate it also. Yeah,
it's one of the worst implementations of focus that I ever seen.
I would find it hard to disagree with that. Yeah,
it's like why, like that shot right there.
Yeah, it looks better from this distance.
Yeah, but you can focus.
But I can't focus it unless I basically turn the depth of field off. And then I'm not separated from the background, which defeats the whole object of having depth of field. So, yeah, that's pretty bad. So I'm just going to bring him back in.
I'm starting to like the design of that robot, by the way.
I like the design of this robot. This is why I wanted to go. So kind of have to come so close. Right there. Now he's back in, and so I can do it a little bit. You know, I can give it. The background is still a bit defocused there. That's acceptable. But it just means you're having to use a closer camera point and a wider field of view. And that's now changed. I've got a bit more perspective on it that I didn't necessarily want, and the background is now fussier. You know, I like to use a long lens and a tidy background. Just gets better shots. I prefer them anyway. But yeah. That's a letdown, a big letdown, but so be it.
That was the first time that I realized that. I was really disappointed with the photo mode. First the range and then the focus, and those first two tabs already disappointed me, and I was like, I'm in for a bad, I'm in for a bad ride. But I actually like the rest.
I think
minus one.
Apart from the second to last one, yes, exactly. So this tab, I think, is excellent. We've got exposure, and we've got brightness. Now I'm just showing you them there. and they do behave slightly differently. So both of them make it very bright, and both of them make it very dark. Put that back in the middle, and now I do brightness. That hasn't done the bright very much on this one, actually. It seems to vary by scene. I can make it completely black. So if I leave that one down and bring exposure up, nice. Just sort of, I don't think it's going to be a good example. Oh, yeah, there you go. The brightness is basically just brightening
controlling the
already bright spots in a way, whereas the exposure seems to behave more like you would actually expect from exposure, as in it lets more light be captured from the scene. So you can
I
find...
think this is the first time I'm understanding what exposure and brightness should do.
Brightness is changing the brightness of the resulting image. I don't think this one's really effective that way. It relies on there being enough light, but when there is light there, it increases the brightness of it, whereas the exposure is like you've let more light into the camera.
Okay.
So play around with them. So like here, a short exposure, the bright lights are visible, but the low lights are not. I have to increase the exposure to make the low lights visible, and now the bright lights have become extremely overpowering. So I like the way the exposure works. The brightness itself could be better, but in different scenes you would get some really cool different effects with it. You can kind of create silhouettes a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
But anyway, just for argument's sake, we'll just make
even in this shot, I like how when you turn the exposure not to the max down, but slightly down.
Yeah.
And then turn the... It seems like the flames in the back are lighting the scene. It's really cool.
Yeah, which is what you'd expect from a lower exposure, as in the bright light source has been recorded, but the rest of it hasn't. So yeah, there's good possibilities there. If it had lighting as well, to me, put some spotlights on the mech now, you could really make good use of it, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to make it so we can see a bit of everything for now, just so we've got more to play with. Hue, weird place to put it. I'd have put this on the next tab personally, but it does this. It just totally changes the the color reference, basically.
I really like using this in the training areas.
Yeah.
Or the arena simulations. I love the fact that it gives the squares in the ground.
On the walls and that, yeah, because they're like red and blue and whatnot. It's really good with any big explosions and like energy weapons as well. Like the blue energy weapons, they're perfect for it. But like now I've kind of gone into like a two-tone effect. It looks like a purple bot on a black and white background. It's kind of cool. Saturation can exaggerate it, or you can take it full black and white. Great.
And that's one that I have, like, it's really sensitive. Like if you go up to 55, it's already super powerful.
On
and
what,
contrast is the same.
Yeah.
Contrast and saturation, both of them are like super powerful.
I'll just put it back to normal colours so we can see the saturation. Yeah, the orange is already quite excess. Yeah. And look at that, it's now turned it into red. I'd always rather have too much available and then let me bring it back rather than it never going far enough. But yeah. Right, so the reason I think hue would be better suited on the next tab is because you can essentially... Now, this isn't going to be a good example because there's only one colour really in this scene, because the bot's red and the flames are yellow, which is so close, right? But you've now got RGB sliders for each one, so he's now green. If I wanted to dial out the green, now what you can see is that it takes green out of the entire scene, so the background is now left with the red and the blue, which makes it that purple. But you can use this to sort of fine tune if we stick them all in the middle somewhere. Just dial the green down a little bit, and if I wanted to put more reds in, you can see I'm just getting now a bit of an orangey / sepia background. Or if I wanted to take the blue down, there you go. You can see what I mean. So you can, working with the hue, you can get lots of different color combos. So I would have put those together on the same tab, but they're good. I really enjoy having this sort of thing. So
yeah, it's I think it's the first time that I see RGB as the filters tab.
It is basically freeform filters, yeah.
Yeah.
Interestingly, if you turn them all off and you just put one of them on, 1 to 100 makes no difference then. And if you've got them all on 1 and you make one 2, it goes off the proportion between them, so blue is now double red. But if I make it all up here, like 99 and 100, it doesn't have the same effect.
Huh.
So there.
You really test everything.
Damn right I do. But you can see that 1 isn't making any difference.
Yeah.
Whereas down at the bottom end, it made a huge difference because it was doubling the difference between red and green and the blue. So just do it again.
You really are a scientist.
There you go. You can see now it's making a bigger difference. So what that means is that if you want a more exaggerated effect, work down at the bottom end of them. And if you want a more subtle effect, work up at the top end. Yes, I am a scientist. My PhD says so.
Remember almost a year ago when we started, wink wink, that I said we should start a segment called Mix Tips. This was this week's.
That was this week's
Mix Tips.
The first one in 6 months, but but there you go, Hue and RGB. Right, took me a little bit to figure out what this was actually doing, and this is an awful example of where to try it. Turn up the intensity. We're only going to get it on the flames here, but it's basically adding that.
And the eyes.
Yeah.
But the eyes are getting covered by...
Yeah. Let me just zoom in and see those. Oh, God. Yeah, twitchy, see that? There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. They're pretty cool, actually. So go back to glow. So you can see that's like turning them off, and it's not just making them brighter, it's making them give this diffuse the
diffuse effect is the smoothness, right?
Okay, so there's 3 sliders here, and I'm going to turn those off. So range and smoothness are the first 2, and intensity is the third one. So intensity is the easiest one to see because it literally just makes those light sources glow a little bit more. They're getting brighter. So I'll stick that on like 25. Smoothness, like you've just said. Oh, there you go. It doesn't do anything at this point because the range is off. So I'm going to bump the range up. And now that does nothing because the smoothness is off. So you have to use these 2 together. So I'll put range in the middle and then smoothness up. Right, now you can see that, like you said, the smoothness is affecting that diffuse glow, but on a low range, hence the range. So that's how much glow there is, and the range, like that's how much extra diffuse glow there is, and the range is how far that goes.
Okay, this whole episode is Mix Tips.
This is how I use every new photo mode. It's like, what is that doing? I try and break it down, because once you understand what it's doing, you can use it better. Because there's a big difference there. But you put the range down at 2, and I can put the smoothness up at 1, and I've not really got much of that diffuse glow. It's just a little bit around them. If I want a big soft gradient, I'll put the range up, and with the smoothness down, it's still not doing much. So I'll put that up with it, and now look, it's glowing right across over his face. And there you go. That's kind of the more like the effect that you probably want. Now the intensity, you'll see, exaggerates how bright that effect is. So there you go. Confusingly, you've then got on the final tab glare and bloom as well, which do the same thing but slightly different, and they seem to apply to different light sources often. But you can see there now I've left the ones on. I'm going to turn them down a little bit just so that they're not as overpowering. Leave the ones on his eyes, we call them eyes, not sure they are. Go to this one. So if I turn this brightness up, watch the rivets on his head. Did you see that? And the background is starting to glow.
I think it's everything that the light reflects off. So the sunlight is reflecting out of the bolts.
Yeah.
On his head.
Yeah. Essentially. Depending on where your threshold is. So brightness is how bright this glare and bloom is. So yeah, reflections is a good example. So you can think of like the glare bouncing off a shiny surface. It's basically that. Threshold is the limit as to where
amount.
it's applied. Yeah. So the lower this number, the more of the surfaces will do it, and the higher the number, the more suppressed it is. So you find that it basically ends up being turned off quite easily. So you work down at this low end.
I use this one more than the other.
I use them together because they do different things, and also this one tends to soften your focus quite a lot. Interestingly though, you can do, let me just zoom out and see if it's affecting the flames much. Right, brightness, yeah it is. So saturation there, you can see that's affecting the flames. I've got high saturation on the yellow flames, and I can turn those down to white. So that's an interesting, but it's not doing it on the eyes.
On the robot, yeah.
Or on the robot, yeah. So I like features like this where you can get different results out of them all. Smoothness here is exactly the same, as in it's the amount of diffuse glow, but there isn't a range option this time. So they're good. They're really interesting. I tend to use the glare to sort of just pick out highlights of reflections and angles of the bot and stuff, but without doing too much. Like there, now it's like I've just turned the gamma up too high and everything's going a bit white, which I don't want. But I like them. So there's one more tab, and I haven't yet found a use for it.
I used it, like, I tried to use it. That's the best way to put it.
Okay, so the tab, for anyone who can't currently see, is motion blur, and you would think, perfect. That's exactly what I want in this. We've got fast moving mechs. I definitely want motion blur. This will be great. But it isn't. So first of all, we've got motion blur on and off. So I'm going to turn it off, and there is a slight difference, but I can never really tell. Let me just zoom back in and go to his face. It's a bit detail. Right, there we go. So if you look at the back of his head, never mind that. You can't even tell. I was going to say the edge of that. There's nothing. But I think on and off by default, there's very little there.
If you are like shooting a machine gun, or if you are gliding really fast, you do see a difference. But it's not that noticeable. So
let me just turn him around, because my mech was moving fast because he's literally just dodged out of the way. So you can see his boosters going. I would expect, like on this leg down here, there to be some motion blur moving backwards. Because it's literally moving. So that's off and that's on. Off, on.
It's not doing anything.
No. Okay, I'll turn the intensity up to full, and then on, off. It affects some edges a little bit, but it's really not doing anything useful.
Do the range. Put the range of the motion blur.
Okay. One sec. I'll just zoom in so you can fully see that leg. Right, there we go. So that's on enough. Turn it back on. So motion blur range increase currently does absolutely nothing.
I that one I don't get.
All right. Well, I'll show you what it does. So
I know I know the next step. I know it affects the next step.
You're damn right it does. Right, let's come back to Optimus over here.
Now the thing with the default motion blur, I don't know what it does. The motion blur range.
Well, I don't think it's doing anything useful anyway. So back over here, right? Motion blur on and off with him. There you go. It's still doing very little. I'll just turn the range up to prove it. There we go. Nothing.
It's off. It's off.
Oops, sorry. I couldn't tell because it doesn't do anything either way. Right, now we've got 3 other options. Horizontal camera blur.
You are not ready for this.
Vertical camera blur and camera blur depth. So I'll do horizontal. So I'll turn that on, and now it's added blur to everything. Intensity is on full, so I can turn it back down. It does nothing until it turns it off. So 1 is on. Same with on and off. But if I just whack that up to the middle somewhere, now motion blur range really shows how the horizontal blur is working. So if I do that, it basically stretches out, and there's 7. Let's use those eyes again. I'll zoom back in on. Wow. You can just see there's like repeated versions of them. So there's like 7 or so mirror images that are all offset. Then that range just affects how much they're offset. So to bring it right down, you can see they're aligning over themselves again. It's like double vision, but times 7.
On everything.
On literally everything.
Everything.
Yeah. And then I'll put that.
That's how motion blur works in real life, right?
Absolutely. It's just yes, it's just a series of offset images.
Okay.
No, it isn't. Vertical does the same, but vertically. Why? And then the final one, camera blur depth, does it sort of by moving the camera backwards, like or towards
that you. One I use some, like I used maybe twice.
Have you?
Even 3 times, like on like shots that I want to, like gunshots and the enemy on the distance. But yeah, I don't get it. That tab had so much potential.
It did. Interestingly, you can do a diagonal one if you put both of these on. So let's set horizontal to 50, and then you'll see that the vertical one changes the diagonal angle of it. But
so if you are into abstract photography,
yeah,
this is the tab for you.
Maybe. But just the fact that it's applied to absolutely everything. You can't like track
what
the bot.
What happens if you do max settings on everything in that tab?
Okay. And so that one you can't really see as much now because the other 2 are overpowering it. But put the blur range up to full, and there you go.
What happens if you do that, but on the last one, go the opposite way?
This?
Yeah.
Oh. We get like a blob form.
That's the thumbnail. That's the thumbnail right there.
No, the thumbnail's got to be recognizable.
But yeah, it's
yeah, a nice feature there I just did, by the way. You can reset the settings per tab. So
yeah,
for example, if I just change the hue to something and make it purple, and then just whack up the motion blur again, I can reset the motion blur without changing, or in fact let's do the other way around. We turn off the purple without resetting the motion blur. Yes, there you go, it goes back. So I like being able to reset them individually.
But it works for tab and not for settings, so be careful.
Yeah, and you can reset the cameras as well. There's L3 and R3 reset the cameras in 2 different ways, which is a little bit weird. One's reset it to its default position where it started, and one's default to its default zoom and everything, I think. I can't remember what I discovered. But there you go. I do think it's a good photo mode, but there's some of the flaws.
Did you took the photo for the thumbnail?
I took the one of the diabolical picture, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use one of the actual shot of this guy.
Okay, you have... Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Can you leave the photo mode?
I can leave the photo mode.
Okay. Can you leave the photo mode? Like unpause the game.
Why?
Because you now have 1 minute to get
1 minute?
the photo. You have 1 minute to get the photo.
Oh my god. There we go. Oh, he's shot. Alright. down. I'm gonna go something around here. I'll stick with this dude. There we go. You can talk while I do this.
You have 30 seconds.
That wasn't what I meant by talk. Like, you say something interesting.
Well, that's the. I don't make the rules. I just make the timer. I
you
just
don't
say
make the
the
rules
timer.
or
Sorry.
conversation.
You have 15 seconds. Okay.
There's
10,
nothing to do on that.
9, 8, 7, 6,
There we
5,
go. That'll
4,
do them.
3, 2, 1. That's the thumbnail.
Okay. You've got the game connected, so I think now the tables should turn. Or do we not have time? Do we have time?
It's 1 minute, so I guess. Okay. I'm actually on the same spot. Are you counting 1 minute? Because I'm not.
Okay, let me know from when. I'll do a minute from when you pick photo mode.
Okay, you can do it now.
Okay.
I guess.
Okay then. You got some nice missiles.
That's hard because of my laptop being in front of the screen. I can't see half of it.
Oh dear. So you're at the first mission here. This is the first boss. So before you turn it off, let's just show how you can not fit that boss, or maybe you can fit that boss in the shot. You've got 25 seconds left.
I'm using what I learned.
Okay. Every time ticking down. This is the default bot. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take the shot. Oh, you got the UI on screen. So let's just see if you can get that boss in the shot with you. Nice timing on the missiles, by the way, or rockets, whichever they are. See, what I like here is the darkness and just the only lighting beam from the glowing thrusters and the spotlight. So if you mess with the exposure and the brightness now, you could make that look totally daylight.
It is daylight.
Yeah, and it's an entirely different...
Okay, so this is the default.
There you go.
If I go like this, it seems like it's at night.
Yeah. And then you bring the brightness up just to compensate a little. Yeah. See, I think there's good potential in that.
I'm actually going to save this shot.
That actually wasn't too bad to get because there's a bit of distance between you and the enemy there. But like some of the big ones that are up close, you just don't have the range for it. But that one worked alright. So there you go.
Okay.
Good photo mode.
Yeah.
Hopefully they might consider fixing the focus distance needs fixing.
Yeah, for sure. I think that and the motion.
Yeah.
The motion blur and for sure. So that's the episode.
That's the episode. Nice t-shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you. You can get one by pledging to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Photomode UNPLUGGED.
In the description.
The link is in the description. Bye.